On this day in 1947, the Scots agreed to sell King Charles I to the English Parliament for £400. 2 years later to the day, Charles I is beheaded for treason. His crime? He was a Protestant and married Henrietta Maria, a Catholic French princess. Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector of the Commonwealth of England, is executed on this day in 1660. But get this, he had already been dead for 2 years. He died in 1658, but when the Royalists returned to power in 1660, they had his corpse dug up, hung in chains, and beheaded. And they weren't vindictive, were they? On this day in 1835, in the first attempted assassination of a U.S. President, Richard Lawrence attempts to shoot President Andrew Jackson in Washington, D.C. Fortunately for Jackson, the gun misfires. On this day in 1862, the USS Monitor, the U.S. Navy's first ironclad warship, is launched. Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne is published in France on this day in 1873. And on this day in 1911, the Canadian Naval Service becomes the Royal Canadian Navy. On this day in 1933, German President Paul von Hindenburg appoints Adolf Hitler as Reichschancellor of Germany, and he forms a government with Franz von Papen. On this day in 1943, 6 British Mosquito aircraft bomb Berlin in the daylight raid. Mohandas, also known as Mahatma Gandhi, the political and spiritual leader of the Indian independence movement, is assassinated in New Delhi by a Hindu fanatic on this day in 1948. On this day in 1962, 2 members of the Flying Wallender's Highway Act are killed when their 7-person pyramid collapses during a performance in Detroit. On this day in 1965, the state funeral of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill is held at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. At the time, it was the largest ever state funeral. On this day in 1968, the Viet Cong launched the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, which includes an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Saigon. On this day in 1972, 27 unarmed civilians are shot, of whom 14 are killed by the British Army during a civil rights march in Derry, Northern Ireland. It is the highest death toll from a single shooting incident during the Troubles. The incident becomes known as Bloody Sunday. And quite a few birthdays today. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the USA, was born on this day in 1882. General Magnus Malan, a former Chief of the South African Defence Force and Minister of Defence, was born on this day in 1930. Actor Gene Hackman was born on this day in 1930 as well. And former world chess champion Russian Boris Spassky was born on this day in 1937. Also born on the same day was British actress Vanessa Redgrave. British musician Phil Collins was born on this day in 1951. And finally, Welsh actor Christian Bale was born on this day in 1974. Betsy Ross, the American seamstress widely credited with making the first American flag, dies on this day in 1836 at the age of 84. U.S. aviation pioneer Orville Wright and brother of Wilbur Wright dies on this day in 1948 at the age of 76. And Coretta Scott King, American activist and wife of Martin Luther King Jr., dies on this day in 2006. And finally, Dr. Max Tiller, the first South African to receive a Nobel Prize, was born in Pretoria on this day in 1899. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and tune in tomorrow for another This Day in History.